Emily Jean Schwarz Ferlazzo is a 22-year-old girl with a gentle smile, a warm voice, and a heart that always looks towards goodness. Everyone believed that Emily's life would be filled with love, until she met Joseph, a man who seemed gentle but harbored something unexpected deep inside. Strange signs began to appear: tense eyes, fleeting anger, a vague fear in Emily's voice. But all of that was ignored until the fateful trip where Emily vanished without a trace. Joseph said she left on her own, but her family's intuition told them otherwise. And when the truth was revealed from an unexpected phone call, everyone realized Emily had trusted the wrong person. And the most dangerous person was the one she trusted the most. Emily Jean Schwarz was born on July 25, 1999, in Plymouth, New Hampshire. She grew up in a family full of love, which helped her develop a strong will and a profound understanding of other people's feelings. She was kind, thoughtful, and fiercely loyal. Music is where Emily pours out her heart and expresses herself. Her gentle yet powerful voice often captivated listeners. Music was more than a hobby for Emily. It was an integral part of her being. Her songs reflected her inner world, her warmth, and her openness. Despite her busy schedule, she always makes time to help others, especially animals. She often visits animal shelters to care for and love them. Emily's dreams were simple: a warm, loving home filled with music and a family built on trust and kindness. She didn't desire wealth or extravagance, only to share her life with someone who valued peace and simplicity. She met Joseph when her life had already settled down. They were introduced by friends and quickly felt connected. Their conversations flowed naturally, openly, and sincerely. Joseph seemed grounded and considerate. He listened more than he spoke, and when he did speak, his gentle tone and reserved smile made Emily feel comfortable and safe. Joseph, born in 1980, also grew up in New Hampshire. He rarely talked about his childhood, only saying that he was always sociable. He avoided conflict and rarely raised his voice, preferring to listen. He had worked various jobs, never staying in any one position for long, but eventually found a stable and independent job. He had been married before, but didn't share much about that marriage. Emily chose not to pry, preferring to focus on the future. She believed Joseph was ready to build a life with her. He respected her interests, encouraged her passions, and showed genuine interest in her work. He talked about his desire to have a family, something Emily had always dreamed of. During the initial weeks of dating, Joseph consistently made an effort to express his affection. He planned outings, surprised her with meaningful gestures, and frequently complimented her dreams. Emily believed him completely and found his care genuine. Her friends noticed the change in her almost immediately. She smiled more when she spoke about Joseph, describing him with warmth and hope and saying that he made her feel peaceful and secure. However, Emily's parents were uneasy from the start. They sensed something was off about Joseph, as if he were hiding something. However, they had no concrete reason to object, and Emily chose not to let their concerns sway her feelings. Emily and Joseph's relationship progressed quickly and smoothly. They frequently discussed their future together, envisioning a comfortable home built on respect, trust, and understanding. In those early months, Emily truly believed her dreams were coming true. She felt she had found someone who understood her like no one else ever had. Yet, beneath the surface, subtle warning signs were present, but Emily wasn't ready to acknowledge them. She craved peace and stability, so she found it hard to believe that Joseph's calm exterior concealed something unsettling. A few months after they started dating, Emily began telling friends and family about Joseph's impatience, often interrupting her when he thought she was wrong. Emily's parents noticed the tension in their daughter's voice, indicating she was very worried. However, she usually avoided discussing the issue further. Gradually, Joseph's behavior became more apparent. Emily recounted that during arguments, he would often raise his voice and criticize her for trivial matters. She tried to excuse these incidents, blaming them on stress and saying they were just brief moments. But her parents were worried. They knew that repeated aggressive behavior, however minor, could be a sign of a serious problem. One day, Emily admitted that Joseph had grabbed her arm tightly during an argument. She quickly excused his behavior, saying it only happened once and that he apologized immediately. But her voice was shaky, as if she was trying to justify something unacceptable. Her parents didn't press her, but they were increasingly certain that she was exhausted and scared. Whenever her parents tried to learn more, she insisted that everything was fine and that she could handle it. They knew that pushing her too hard could push her away. Emily was an adult, and interfering could damage their relationship. Ultimately, they could only wait and hope she would eventually feel ready to share the truth. But her eyes told a different story. Despite trying to appear calm, her parents saw through it. Behind closed doors, their home was filled with fear and control, not love. Joseph had gradually taken control of Emily's life, starting with emotional manipulation and moving on to physical dominance. He isolated her, limited her freedom, and reacted with angry outbursts. He made her believe that she was to blame for everything. As often happens in unhealthy relationships, Emily tried to justify Joseph's behavior. She hoped he would change, convincing herself it was temporary. She might have been afraid to leave, felt guilty, or been planning to leave but didn't get the chance. From the outside, their life looked normal. They shared photos, went on trips, and smiled in public. But beneath the surface, their relationship was built on fear and distrust. Joseph didn't want a partner. He wanted control. And when he felt that his control over Emily was weakening, he made a final, irreversible decision. When Joseph suggested a trip to Vermont, Emily saw it as an opportunity to rethink their relationship. She hoped the short trip would help them reconnect. Despite her parents' concerns, Emily remained hopeful. They knew about recent arguments, but Emily assured them she could handle the situation. On October 15, 2021, they left New Hampshire in a vehicle towing a trailer. Joseph had planned the route in advance, choosing Bolton because he knew it well and thought it would be perfect for their getaway. Emily focused on preparing for the trip, seeing it as a way to forget her worries. She hoped a few quiet days away from the pressures of everyday life would help them reconnect. However, Emily immediately noticed changes in Joseph's behavior. He was unusually quiet and withdrawn, and the tension made her uneasy. She tried to dismiss it as fatigue from the drive. Even so, she hoped the trip would be a turning point. But the unease remained. Part of their plan was to meet Nikki Ferlazzo, Joseph's sister, and her boyfriend. They planned to have dinner together at the apartment Joseph had rented online. Emily hoped everything would go well because she knew Nikki was important to Joseph and she wanted to make a good impression. Upon arrival, Emily greeted everyone with a friendly smile. Everything appeared normal, but something was still amiss. Every word Joseph spoke seemed to carry tension or discomfort. After a brief exchange, Joseph abruptly informed Nikki that they would not be staying for dinner. This abrupt decision left Emily feeling detached and confused. Nikki and her boyfriend were also bewildered. Emily felt her unease intensify on what should have been an evening of togetherness. Instead, Joseph suggested they spend the night in the camper, wanting alone time with Emily. To avoid conflict, Emily agreed, suppressing her growing questions. The night passed in silence, unaware of what the morning would bring. Emily hoped for clarity. She didn't realize this trip was becoming a nightmare, a point of no return. This was supposed to be a turning point in their relationship, but it ended tragically. Emily was never heard from again after that night. Her last phone call to her parents was brief and vague. She told them everything was fine and they would be home soon. Though her voice sounded calm, her parents sensed hidden tension. These words became the confirmation that something was seriously wrong. After 3 days of silence, Emily's family contacted Joseph. He repeatedly claimed Emily had left after an argument and he didn't know where she was. Days later, Joseph returned home alone, insisting to Emily's family that she had left voluntarily after a disagreement, calling for a ride and stating she no longer wanted to be with him. Emily's parents didn't believe him and contacted the police. Joseph told the same story to her family and the police, delivering it calmly and without hesitation. But her parents weren't convinced. They knew Emily would never disappear without a word. Meanwhile, Joseph acted as if nothing was wrong. His calmness seemed forced, making Emily's parents more suspicious each time he repeated his story. They realized that if Emily hadn't contacted anyone for days, something terrible had happened. Joseph was the only one who might know the truth, but he only offered empty, remorseless words. Amid the growing fear over Emily's disappearance, a call came in that changed everything. A man named Spencer Lemons called emergency services. His voice was tense and shaky as he explained that he had recently met with Joseph. Spencer and Joseph weren't close friends, but they occasionally helped each other. Joseph had asked Spencer to meet him in St. Albans, where the camper was located. Joseph claimed he urgently needed a ride back to the camper because he had left some belongings behind. Spencer, unaware of the situation, agreed to help. He picked up Joseph and they drove to the camper's location. Joseph was unusually quiet and tense. Spencer felt uneasy, but chose to remain silent until he understood the situation better. As they neared the camper, Spencer noticed Joseph becoming increasingly agitated. Sensing something was wrong, Spencer asked Joseph directly what had happened. In a calm, cold voice, Joseph told Spencer that Emily was dead. Spencer directly asked him if he was involved in her death. Without hesitation, Joseph answered yes. The chilling confession was uttered as casually as if he were talking about something normal. Spencer realized he was sitting next to Joseph, who had confessed to a serious, violent crime. His heart pounded, but he stayed calm, fearing Joseph's reaction if he panicked. He didn't ask any further questions, pretending not to have heard anything. When he had the chance, he left, got in his car, and drove away. Soon after, he called 911 and reported everything. Speaking to the operator, Spencer's voice trembled as he recounted the details he remembered. He said Joseph admitted to killing Emily and that her body was in the camper. This was the first real evidence against Joseph's story. Spencer's call was a turning point for investigators, and they immediately responded. They now had a reason to search the camper and question Joseph. Joseph agreed to an interview at the station and gave his version of events, seemingly designed to minimize his involvement. He described his relationship with Emily as troubled, mentioning frequent arguments and claiming their final disagreement was minor. He insisted Emily was being difficult and wanted to leave, and that he couldn't stop her. He initially presented it as a tragic accident. However, when officers questioned him further, especially about Spencer's call, his story began to fall apart. He hesitated, and his initial confidence faded. Joseph eventually admitted to telling Spencer what happened, which was a major flaw in his carefully crafted story. Investigators noticed his calm demeanor, but his answers sounded rehearsed, as if he had practiced them. He maintained the events were accidental and that he never meant to hurt Emily. Detectives were unconvinced and felt he was hiding important details. Eventually, Joseph admitted to a heated argument with Emily. He claimed he tried to leave, but something inside him snapped. He said he sat in silence for several minutes, as if contemplating his next move. His words became distant, as if he were describing someone else's actions. He then revealed he went to a cabinet and retrieved a silenced firearm. He said he took it out, and everything seemed to go quiet. Emily was lying in bed, unaware of what was about to happen. Joseph approached, pressed a pillow under her head, and fired 2 shots. He claimed he wanted it to be quick and silent. His tone was chillingly calm, and officers believed this was a planned act. He had carefully thought out each step. Afterwards, Joseph said he sat motionless, staring blankly. Then, he decided to hide what he had done. He described carefully moving Emily's body into the camper's small shower. He said he turned on the cold water to wash away the blood and clean the scene. He recounted everything without emotion, as if describing a routine task. Joseph said he then meticulously cleaned the camper, trying to erase all traces of the crime. He wiped the floors, scrubbed stains, and checked every corner, claiming he did it calmly and methodically. He believed thorough cleaning would conceal the truth, at least for a while. His words showed no remorse, but were simply a factual explanation of the steps he thought were necessary. Directed to law enforcement, it became clear that investigators were dealing with someone who acted intentionally and showed no guilt. His account became crucial evidence, proving Emily was the victim of cold, calculated cruelty. Joseph didn't try to run or evade arrest. On the contrary, his subsequent actions only increased investigators' concerns. He stayed near the camper where her body was hidden, acting as if nothing had happened. He socialized, ate breakfast out, and met with friends, showing no signs of distress. Those who met him had no suspicion of the horrific truth he was concealing. He showed no panic or confusion, but rather calmness and confidence, further reinforcing the belief that everything was fine. He even ate, drank tea, and slept in the camper, just feet from Emily's body. Investigators confirmed he spent every night there from the time of her death until his arrest. He didn't try to dispose of the body or find another place to stay. This became his routine, showing how determined he was to appear normal. Joseph needed everything to seem ordinary, to avoid suspicion. He was careful not to behave in a way that would draw attention to himself. He even had a plan if anyone asked about Emily. He would make up a story to maintain his secret. Emily's loved ones repeatedly called, asking if he'd seen her. Each time, he calmly said she had walked away after an argument. No one suspected he was returning to the camper, hiding a horrifying truth. His composure was chilling. At first, Emily's death might have seemed like a tragic accident, but the investigation revealed a calculated crime rooted in psychological control and a pattern of escalating behavior. Joseph's life revolved around controlling others to feel powerful. His relationship with Emily wasn't about love, it was about domination. Affection turned into fear. He controlled where she lived, who she saw, and how she acted. His aggression wasn't just occasional outbursts, it was a deliberate pattern of control. Any sign of independence from Emily was perceived as a threat. The tension between them grew as Emily began to distance herself, confiding in her parents. Joseph noticed this. For someone whose identity is built on control, losing that power is unacceptable. This isn't a broken heart. It's a failure. He can't let her go. He didn't want her, but he viewed her choice to leave as a personal loss. His motive wasn't self-preservation, but the need to eliminate what he couldn't control. He ended Emily's life deliberately and methodically while she slept. If she wouldn't be his, she wouldn't be anyone's. Afterward, he covered up his actions to maintain control over her death and everything that followed. His motive wasn't revenge, fear, or self-defense, but the desire to preserve power at any cost. The prosecution began court proceedings, presenting Joseph's words and inconsistencies as key evidence. The investigation revealed that Joseph planned the crime carefully, suggesting it wasn't a spontaneous act of anger. This forensic evidence was crucial to the prosecution's argument. Joseph argued that the relationship was strained and that Emily often started fights. He claimed the crime wasn't planned and that dismembering the body was a desperate attempt to deal with the situation. But his explanation wasn't believable. The evidence suggested a more sinister and intentional act. Emily's friends and family testified, sharing who she was and the life she lost. They described her as kind, gentle, and always helpful, highlighting the qualities they cherished. For them, the trial was about honoring Emily's memory and seeking justice. Their stories contrasted sharply with Joseph's attempt to paint the crime as an accident. After closing arguments, the court found Joseph Ferlazzo guilty of first-degree murder. He received a 42-year prison sentence, which represented accountability for Emily's parents. While it couldn't bring Emily back, it ensured Joseph wouldn't be free. Emily's life was tragically short, but her memory lives on. Her family continues to remember her and keep her spirit alive. Knowing the truth about what happened gave them strength to move forward.